Morning. I'd like to call the Kankakee County Full Board meeting for September 14th to order. Today's invocation is from Steve Hunter.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I have brought a guest here who will provide the invocation. Very good friend of mine, a local man who hails from the Fairhaven Church of God in Christ. Not only is he a religious individual, he's a leader in our community and has been here for all of his life. I'd like to introduce Reverend Carl Randall. His family and mine have been friends for over 100 years, believe it or not. We are 100 years. So those individuals from Pembroke, don't forget us.
Microphone is right over there.
Let us say amen. Eternal God, our Father, we first of all love to thank you. We thank you, God, for the county. We thank you, God, how you have been loving, kind to us and how you've been merciful. God, you kept us from severe storms, and you didn't let the spirit of crime of Cook County bleed over to Kankakee County. So we have a lot to thank you for. God, we pray, Lord, for these elected officials today. God, as you said in the scripture that if the heart of the king is in your hand, so are we. So God, we pray, Lord, that this county board, Lord, that you would give them counsel, give them guidance, let there be some collaborations. Lord, let them make the decisions for the best interest of the people. Help them be mindful, Lord, even of their job, their positions. Lord, help them be mindful of the people. Lord, we pray, Lord, for unity. We pray for collaborations. In Jesus' name, amen.
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 Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Get a roll call, please.
Thank you.
Hit and quit it.
Mr. Hess. Present. Mr. Tholen. Mrs. Polk.
Present.
Mr. Snipes. Present. Mr. Seroy.
Present.
Mr. Lear.
Present.
Mrs. Weber. Present. Mrs. Peters. Mr. Payton.
Present.
Mrs. Parker.
Present.
Mr. Fairfield.
Present.
Mr. Carrico.
Present.
Mr. Eckhoff. Mr. Swanson.
Present.
Mr. Featherling.
Present.
Mr. Dunhill. Mr. Miller.
Present.
Mr. Long.
Present.
Mr. Kirkstra.
Present.
Mr. Hunter. Ms. Bryan.
Present.
Mr. Collins.
Present.
Ms. Hudson.
Present.
Mr. Smith.
Present.
Mr. Alexander Hildebrand.
Present.
Mr. Wheeler.
Present.
We have a quorum.
We have a quorum. Under public commentary, I have 8 requests. We have a total of 15 minutes for public comment, so please be cognizant that you have other people that want to talk. So try to be as brief as possible, but obviously say what you want to say. So it's at the microphone back there. First up is, last name is Spencer, I believe. I'm in trouble with the first name. Sorry about that. If you could introduce yourself, please, and then you have the mic.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lillian Spencer, and I'm a trustee at Pembroke Township, along with Mr. Sam Payton, the supervisor. My questions are, I have a few of them, and I will not be long. The first one is, it's about the development that's coming to Pembroke Township. His name is Ernest Givens Development LLC, bringing projects. That's my concern about the projects that he wants to bring out to Pembroke Township, Hopping Park. I met with Mr. Givens 2 weeks ago at the village meeting, and he had his plans there with his supporters, with his crew, talking about the development that he wants to bring out to Pembroke. After he got through with his presentation, I asked the mayor, Mark Hodge, was there a community meeting? And Mr. Mayor Mark Hodge, he said no, that it would be one during the groundbreaking. Well, that would be too late. Okay, that was my first concern. My second one is that we do not even have, when I say we, Pembroke Township doesn't even have a police department. The fire department, they only have volunteers. That's my second question. Mr. Givens spoke at the village meeting that his development would bring more children for Lorenzo School. Well, we have enough children out there to fill Lorenzo School, but their parents choose to send them to another school. The problem is why we do not know. The fourth one is the sewage. We have a problem with the sewage out there, with the water out there. The water out there is not fit to drink from, okay? So majority of the community have to buy bottled water because of the sewage problem, because of the water problem out there in Pembroke Township. Mr. Givens, he said that it would be 76 units that he will place out there for the project. That's the question of today. My biggest question is why the leadership out in Pembroke Township and Hoppin Park letting people come in from other places, even the ones out there in leadership pimping Pembroke and Hoppin Park Township. I don't understand that. We want to bring different things out there to Pembroke Township, and yes, we do need a lot. I won't say that we don't, we do, okay? But let's bring the right things for the right reason that we need out there. We need a laundromat, we need a bank, we need a store, we need a lot of things. The water need fixing, the sewage need fixing, the gas lines come out there. Yes, it hit some places and miss other places, okay? And I thank God for the gas line that coming out, but a lot of people is not going to get gas lines. They're not going to get it. And a lot of people out there are upset. The reason that I know personally, because I run the food pantry out there, and they come to me and they talk to me about what's going on out there in Pembroke Township. We need help. I wouldn't doubt that we do, okay? But let's do it in decency and in order. Thank you for listening to me.
I have John Howard is next from Hopkins Park.
Thank you. Good morning. My concern is the federal grant money that was coming to the county. Our agency, Kankakee County Youth Intervention Agency, submitted a proposal that was in the paper in March for funding for this grant, and almost talking about the same thing that Ms. Spencer's talking about. In July, I submitted a proposal to serve on the committee. And in August, we submitted another proposal in addition to the one that was submitted in March. We haven't heard a word from anyone as to, yes, we received it, it's approved, it's denied, or whatever. I don't know why you put stuff in the paper if you're not going to respond back and give a response back to that. I'd like to know, have they started spending the money? Is there any funds coming to Hopkins Park, Pembroke Township? What is the status on that? Thank you very much.
The next is Kathy Van Diezik. All right, sorry about that.
No problem.
From Pembroke Township.
My name is Catherine, or Kathy Van Diezik. I am a trustee on Township Board. I have come, and to piggyback off of Ms. Spencer, this development has been in the works for a while, but we are just now hearing about it. As she said, yes, our community, we do have needs, but we do not need a housing project in our community when we don't have a police department to facilitate a housing project, or whatever they might want to call it now that the community is speaking up. Spoke with the developer inside. The mayor is calling him, telling him, oh, no, make them townhouses now. it's still a housing development with low income. We don't have a fire department. Our emergency assistance, it takes them 30 minutes to get to us. We can get our people to the hospital quicker than they'll get to us. We have more pressing needs. In the future, if they want to do a development, fine, but put in place the infrastructures that'll support this development. We're already having issues with the crime that's out there. You guys know about our sitco, Club Sitco as it's been called. You guys know about the recent shootings and the deaths out in our community. We don't have policing. The police response to our community is 15 minutes at best. And we can't fault them because the county they're working on a large range of communities and townships. So we're just one of many that they have to service. We've asked several times for funding, for help, for policing. So if you guys want to help us with that and stop this development, because that's not what we need in our community. Thank you for your time.
The next is Herbert Lillard.
Good morning. I'm Herbert Lillard. I'm a trustee on the Pembroke Township Board. I'm here to speak for the people because they spoke with me about this housing project that's been proposed. They are against it. So I'm against it. I'm expressing to you the concerns of the people. It doesn't sound even feasible for the infrastructure that we have, that this development would be successful and certainly not useful to the community. So I just wanted you to know how the people of Pembroke Township felt. Now, I don't know the ins and outs. I'm pretty new to government, but this pre-annexing of the land to get these projects done, to go around the township, and that project is in the township. So they can get around us with pre-annexing. They can do what they want if they don't have to address the people. So that is a big concern of mine personally and everyone else there. So thank you for listening to our concerns.
Thank you.
Next is Derek Hammond in Pembroke Township.
Good morning. My name is Derek Hammond. I'm an ex-Chicago resident who moved down here to Kankakee, Hopkins Park, and when I was working up in Chicago, I worked for the city as snow removal. And the hardest thing for me to get now down here is a job helping out removing snow during the wintertime. And this was the main reason why I moved down here, to try to help out. And you know, it's like an endless well that I'm dropping pennies in and not getting anything back from. So the thing is what I basically wanted to talk about was that as a former City of Chicago employee, my biggest concern is because we don't have enough people to help keep them safe, doing roads safe, you know, as far as coming out here helping us. If we had an emergency, 9 out of 10 chances an ambulance would not be able to get to most of the people out here. And we got people who will help get them out of there to the hospitals, but you know, our roads should be clear, and nobody's helping out for that. So that's my biggest concern. Thank you.
Next is Stephanie Hammond.
Hello. Well, I'm the neighborhood loudmouth. So I speak out, and a lot of people don't like it. but the truth is the truth. It's not supposed to be liked or disliked. It's supposed to be the truth. We have the same thing with the school. I'm piggybacking on them on safety. The last major snowstorm, we had one guy doing the whole village because the mayor wants to have his own road crew. He doesn't want to use the township, which has been used for how many years now? The village pays the township to do the whole thing, and he had staff. Now, when the mayor decided to put in his own, he had no qualified people. The guy who brought the first truck, my husband said, didn't buy the snowplow that had the floaters. They tore up the truck twice. He told him how to get to the city of Chicago to get qualified equipment, for little or nothing, or sometimes, he wouldn't listen. So the biggest problem the second problem they said at the school, people are running from Lorenzo like it's on fire. So bringing more kids out to a school that nobody else wants to go to doesn't make sense. We have almost a kindergarten teacher driving buses because we do not have enough drivers. We got 5 and 6 year olds sitting on the bus for more than an hour to get to school. We don't have enough bus drivers. So why bring more kids out there to sit on the bus for add another 15, 20, 30 minutes to get home? Some of these kids get home in the winter at dark. It's dark. Some of them have to walk down dark roads where they have no lights to get to their homes. And like he said, last year, the one guy who did the road, he had never done roads before. He got hired because Mark can't get nobody else to do them. Mark didn't have any equipment when he wanted to do his own road. So why would you have a road commission? We had potholes 5 feet wide all winter, all summer. This development is going to be 76 units on 5 lousy acres plus 6,000 square feet of realtor space for stores and God knows what else. It's right behind people who have told him they don't want it behind, like he said. Plus, where it's going, it's at least a 7 to 10 foot drop where the land is behind all the houses up front. We don't. Our sewer system is bubbling up on 2,000. You come in the village, you stand there, you smell raw sewage. You look at it, it's raw sewage. It's just bubbling up. We've been doing that for a couple of years now. So how are we gonna put 72 more units out there? 72 on 5 acres. He's using word logistics. Oh, it's not high and dense. It's just townhouses. No, it's high density, low income. We don't have anything to service people who don't have nothing to give the community back because they're looking for something. We don't have nothing to give them. What Billy Preston say? Nothing from nothing leaves nothing. So this gas line is not the all answer that he thinks is going to bring jobs. Jobs don't follow people. People follow jobs. Okay? We need someone with more vision on how to bring in revenue without destroying the community. And I don't want to give it our black farmers. If we start modernizing, we'll be like Robbins and Morgan Park and the rest of the black farmers disappear. We have the last concentration of black farmers north of the Mason-Dixon line. We don't want to disappear because they want to modernize and put in sidewalks and dump stuff that we don't need. Heck, country kids know how to get out of the way of trucks and farm equipment when they're walking down the street. So my concern is the school and the safety issues. We got 300-some four-wheelers out there every weekend. Every weekend. Tearing up the roads. They going through private people's property. People block them. They get equipment, knock the blocks down. Sell food, shoot guns, and it's horrible. Because we have no police department to tell them they can't ride these four-wheelers up. They tear up the gravel road, spinning around. We got too many issues to be bringing more people out there to pile on more issues. And no protection from nothing. And the last thing I want to say is our 911 system, you call 911, they call Newton County. Newton County, you explain Newton County, my husband fell down the stairs, they says he breathing, you go through your story. Okay, yeah, he breathing or whatever, he's not, Then they called Kankakee County. And then Kankakee County sends them out. So you done wasted 10 to 15 minutes explaining to two entities that you need an ambulance. So it might take the ambulance a few minutes to come from St. Anne, but you wasted at least 15 minutes just to get your story out so you can get the ambulance there in the first place. We don't need any more people out there. This development has to come to an end. It has to stop until we got the tail wagging the dog out there, and it don't make no sense.
Andy, I'll make a motion to extend.
Mr. Siroy makes a motion to extend for 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Is there a second on that motion? Mr. Long, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. All right, we will go until 9:26. Next up is Teresa Hogan. Hogan? Is it an N or an M? Apologize. St. Anne.
How you doing, everybody? My name is Teresa Hogan. I'm speaking for the farmers. I'm a farmhand at Boots and Saddles. We need equipment like, I remember a couple years ago, it was trying to get some tractors for the farmers, but they don't have no help. No young people want to help nobody but me. I can't do it by myself. So we need jobs. We need somebody to come out there to Pembroke Township and who like to do garden work like myself, you know? It's nothing but you guys left. Who gonna do it after you guys? Me? So farmers need help out there. Yeah, that's all I gotta say.
Thank you.
I represent Boots and Saddles.
Ida Thurman is next.
Good morning. Ida Thurman. Thank you all for allowing us all to come here and express our concerns. I'm a township trustee. We were approached during our last meeting from our people, the ones we represent, asking us what's going on. I'm sitting there, yes, new at this. And I felt really just discouraged because we're the last ones to know. Oh, it was brought up before, but it was shot down like it was anything. Why is it that people who are elected to look out for the people are the last one to know? But thank God for those people who brought it to our attention. They're expecting us to do something to help out because they're saying they didn't want it. Not in their backyards. That's what they're saying. The issues, as they stated already, safety, infrastructure pressure, and which include police, school, roads, and the fire department, and the water system and the sewer system. So I ask that you protect our rural community. Yes, as a farmer, we do need help. We're consistent. And we love and respect where we live, okay? And it's rural. I've seen destruction in cities with gated communities. I lost two of my nephews in one. It is not safe. It is important to keep our rural structure in place, helping to bring small business in the community. Small businesses, education for small businesses. Thank you.
All right, finally, we have Mr. Bay from Pembroke Township.
Good morning. I'm just here to ask for to check the status of. I was here in July and brought up the issue of we needed some emergency funds for the raw sewage that's still going now in Pembroke, and it's been two months. I don't blame you all. I'm not saying I blame you all for it. It was told to me that you need 3 bids for an emergency issue. Now, I'm not sure if that's true or what it is, but we need to get that cleared up. It's been 2 months, and these people still have raw sewage in front of their house, when it's an issue that could have been done in 2 weeks. Now, I don't know what the requirement is, but please let our supervisor know that it doesn't take 3 bids in an emergency situation to do an emergency. In this COVID time, we can't put extra things on ourselves. So I'm asking the county board to get with our supervisor, let him know that it doesn't take 3 bids to do an emergency situation. And I'm quite sure he has put in some. I don't know. He has put in 1 or 2 or whatever, but it don't take 3. Thank you.
Alrighty, moving on. We have, first item is a resolution declaring a vacancy in County Board District 20. Mr. Kinzinger put in his resignation effective, I can't remember the date, but
August 27th.
27th? Okay. It was on the 27th, so we have to officially vote on that, even though it seems obvious. So is there a motion to accept that and announce the opening? Mr. Featherling, Mr. Alexander Hildebrand with a second. Simple voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll get that posted and out there. I've already had 1 applicant, so we'll see if there's others coming. If you know anybody in that Bourbonnais district, let us know. Moving on under vacancy appointments, if you could read the title of this in the record, please.
Resolution of the County Board of Kankakee County, Illinois, approving the appointment of Michael Gowler to the Kankakee County Board to fill the unexpired term in District 12.
Is there a motion on this to start with?
Polk.
Ms. Polk, second. Mr. Fairfield. Any comment? All righty, it'll be just a simple voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Mr. Gowler, if you could, please be sworn in. Come on up here, yeah, to start with.
Good morning. If you could raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Mike Gowler,
Having been appointed
have been appointed
to the office of County Board District 12
to the office of County Board District 12
in the County of Kankakee
in the County of Kankakee,
and State of Illinois,
State of Illinois,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and will faithfully discharge the duties
and will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office
of
County Board Member District 12
County Board Member District 12
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gowler? Wait till he signs this, then he can't back out. So you have a couple of spots here in the front between Mr. Long, Mr. Alexander Hildebrand, or next to Mr. Featherling right there. In December of next year, we're going to have a draft, because we got away from some of our traditions during COVID of people having a chance to grab those seats if they wanted to move. Well, the whole room has been juggled a few times since then, so we'll get back to that later in December when the new board sits. So next December, excuse me. Welcome, thank you for your interest in serving. Have nothing under proclamations, certificates, the minutes of the last meeting, August 10th, 2021, and September 1st, 2021. Is there a motion there, Mr. Hunter? Second, Ms. Bryan. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Under Claims Committee reports.
Mr. Chairman and members of the County Board, your Committee on County Claims would beg leave to report they have examined the following claims presented and recommend payment. The clerk is hereby authorized and directed to issue orders to the several claimants. Total claims of $10,162,710.37.
Is there a motion on that? Mr. Lear, Ms. Hudson with a second. Without any questions, that'll be a roll call vote.
Just a moment. Mr. Hess.
Aye.
Mrs. Polk.
Aye.
Mr. Snipes.
Left the room.
Mr. Seroy.
Aye.
Mr. Lear.
Aye.
Mrs. Weber.
Aye.
Mr. Payton.
Aye.
Mrs. Parker.
Aye.
Mr. Fairfield.
Aye.
Mr. Carrico.
Aye.
Mr. Swanson.
Aye.
Mr. Featherling.
Aye.
Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Long.
Aye.
Mr. Kirkstra.
Aye.
Mr. Hunter. Ms. Bryan.
Aye.
Mr. Collins.
Aye.
Ms. Hudson.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Alexander.
Aye.
Mr. Gowler.
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler.
Aye.
First vote.
Motion carries. Under department reports.
County Collector's Monthly Report for July 2021. Total cash and bank and investments, $3,440,577.32. Treasurer's Monthly Report for July 2021. Total cash and investments, $3,440,577.32. Coroner's Monthly Report for July 2021. Total calls 125, coroner's cases 14, 6 autopsies, 6 toxicology, 1 donation, 1 fetal, 70 hospice, 40 referrals, 54 cremations, 4 pending. The coroner's income report for July, $4,448. Circuit clerk cash book for month ending July 2021, total dispersed $273,289.40. Recorder's monthly report for July 2021, $194,053.73 disbursements fees paid to the county treasurer. County clerk for July 2021, total of $28,128.05. Animal control monthly report for July 2021, total of $54,384 in the IPTIP building fund, $4.50. Total animals handled, 136. The county monthly building division report, total permits of 91, total fees of $41,684. Monthly resolution list for September 2021, total to the county of $3,796.59.
All righty, is there a motion to combine and approve here? Mr. Long, Mr. Swanson with a second. Without any comment, voice vote, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed,
Aye.
same sign. Motion carries. Under one of our 3 consent agendas today, first one, is there anything, the first list, that should be removed to discuss separately? And that just goes up through number 1 there. The others we'll handle separately as we go. Should I say section 1? Second time? Anything to be removed? All righty, is there a motion to combine and approve? Mr. Hess, second, Mr. Miller. If we can get that read in the record, please. Yes, sir.
Chairman, question on the motion. For those of you have been at all the different meetings and subcommittees, a lot of this stuff has been discussed, presented, and if you talk with the chairman, you know some of this stuff was coming forward. And you may recall, Mr. Chairman, that I know specifically I had asked you from your administration, from the various departments, if they would submit to you their needs as opposed to necessarily wants. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, but can we get to that next? Because this section is just about the things in section 1.
I understand.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're not voting on all that.
What people,
Yeah.
you know, there have been some comments made under public comments about addressing proposals that they've submitted, and all I'm saying is that I know that these particular matters here have been discussed. You have presented information to us, and that's why we're acting upon these particular items. Doesn't preclude that some of the comments that have been made in the community and as well as before this body that will be addressed in different kinds of procedures and oversight. Is that a correct statement?
Yeah, yes, sir. All of the social service stuff, we agreed that we're gonna go out for an RFQ to put all that together into one major NOFO. We did talk about that, and we're putting all of that together into one series, either one large funding mechanism for all of the social programs, because we have requests that are competing for the same clientele. And so rather than encouraging people to compete, we talked about, let's organize this better and try to take care of as many people as possible. So we're putting out an RFQ for that one point of contact, one point of accountability, if you will, on the reporting that feeds up through us, because we can't chase down 45 sub-grantees every quarter. And so we talked about that in committees. That's why we shift directions. And that was very public and very obvious, and was said very plainly, I thought, in the committees. But yeah, we'll get to that in a second, because right now we're just going through number 311. But we can dive into that a little more if the board would like to hear that, to talk about that once we get to the section 2, which is the disbursement of the funds. So is there any other thoughts? If we could get those read in the record through 311, please.
The appointment of Mark Brinkman to the Moments Pembroke Union Drainage District Number 1. The appointment of Lisa Sanford to the Kankakee Regional Land Bank. The appointment of Joe Nugent to the Kankakee Regional Land Bank. The reappointment of Bruce Clark to the Kankakee County Public Building Commission. The reappointment of Tinker Parker to the Animal Welfare Advisory Committee, board member. The reappointment of Carol Weber to the Animal Welfare Advisory Committee as a board member. The reappointment of Dr. Andy Wegner to the Animal Welfare Advisory Committee as a veterinarian. The reappointment of Dr. Diane Fedro to the Animal Welfare Advisory Committee. The reappointment of Abigail Smith to the Animal Welfare Advisory Committee. The reappointment of Christy Slavey to the Animal Welfare Advisory Committee. Amendment to County Code Section 30.1, vehicle seizure. Declaring vehicle as surplus from the probation department. Declaring equipment as surplus, coroner's office. Declaration of surplus, highway department.
All righty. Without any other comment, I guess, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hess. Aye. Mrs. Polk.
Aye.
Mr. Snipes. Aye. Mr. Seroy.
Aye.
Mr. Lear.
Aye.
Mrs. Weber.
Aye.
Mr. Payton.
Aye.
Mrs. Parker.
Aye.
Mr. Fairfield.
Aye.
Mr. Carrico.
Aye.
Mr. Swanson.
Aye.
Mr. Featherling.
Aye.
Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Long.
Aye.
Mr. Kirkstra.
Aye.
Mr. Hunter.
Aye.
Ms. Bryan.
Aye.
Mr. Collins.
Aye.
Ms. Hudson.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Alexander.
Aye.
Mr. Gowler.
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler.
Aye. Motion carries. Now, moving on to section 2 under finance. We'll go through the first two, but I just wanted to mention, as we go through the rest of these, I would like to note that on number 317, that's going to be a not to exceed number of $30,000 now, if you could please make a note of that. And skip the next item, but the following one was not to exceed $8,500. We have updated costs from the coroner. Kind of a simple rule of economics: when you have too much cash in society and when it's floating around and not enough demand, that creates inflation. And so these prices are going up. And so when this was first submitted, now we have higher prices based on demand and inflation. So just wanted to mention that so when we vote on those, just make sure that's noted, if that the resolution will be reflected. We're going to change those after the meeting. We got those numbers last night. So moving on, if we could read 312, the title into the record, please.
Resolution of the County Board of Kankakee County, Illinois, regarding the creation of American Rescue Plan Fund requirements for business and not-for-profit non-social service organizations.
So is there a motion on this to start with? Ms. Parker and Ms. Polk with a second. For brief explanation, we created, I'll just talk about them both. We created 2 capped funds, each of $250,000 for people to apply for grants from. whether it's a non-covered governmental unit, which is the next resolution we'll talk about. Those are park districts, township fire protection districts, those types of things that didn't get money out of this round of COVID funding. And then also for businesses and not-for-profits. In this case, our cap is $10,000. If they are in a municipality, we would pay half of that and they would go to the municipality for their other half. That way we get full participation from that and we pay out. We don't need to see that the municipality has participated. We just pay our half and let them chase them down. And the other side of it is all we really require is that they're a business in good standing. We've talked about that. So we have to verify that they're still in business and it's not just money for non-business uses or not-for-profits. Obviously, the governmental unit's still going to be around. So that's all we're going to require on the back end and a signature that we're going to create the form to say that, you know, everything in this form is attested to be true and under penalty of perjury, blah, 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 or fraud, whatever. We'll figure all that out with the state's attorney's office. But, well, that's kind of how we're moving forward with this, and that's what finance is recommending to this committee. So is there questions about just this one where we're talking about the non-for-profits and the businesses? Mr. Hunter.
Yeah. Do you have a commitment from, let's say, the city of Kankakee? I know you've interfaced with Mayor Curtis, and I assume you've had the discussion that, because I know for one of the people that had suggested that they submit a proposal for funding, and I've mentioned it to a lot of you at some of the meetings, and there was no adverse comments regarding funding this project. Do you have a commitment from Chris Curtis regarding sharing and collaborating?
There are I don't know of any city council that's voted on that, or village trustees or anything like that. I haven't had anybody say a negative word about that. That doesn't mean there aren't any negative thoughts, but we can't force them to do so, nor can I think the mayor act on his own. Right. But it was well received with the mayors that I've talked to.
And people in the audience need to understand too that we get more bang for our bucks in terms of other entities, other governmental units sharing and collaborating with us. There are a lot of folks who've come to us for the 21.34 million that we're getting, and there are other avenues for funding as well too. But if we collaborate with other local units of government, we impact more for the health, safety, and welfare of the people in the county. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Especially when we start talking about some of these bigger social service type things that we're talking about that impact across communities, across city boundaries. You know, in this case, the businesses and not-for-profits, well, not as much not-for-profits, obviously, but the businesses, tax revenue goes to both the county and the city, so we both have a horse in that race, per se. It's in our best interest to make sure we have a vibrant economy. Obviously, the non-for-profits weren't able to do fundraisers, so we're getting a lot of those types of requests. I want to say animal related, if you will, and others that weren't able to do things last year. So again, I think it's very well received, but they were down the block and around the corner on some of this stuff, and not through anybody's fault. People are just getting moving on the process that we're part of.
Right. Yeah. And you know, for the attendees here today, and I don't presume to speak for the very learned Township Supervisor Payton, but there's been a commitment, you know, from all of you guys here regarding dealing with the water system out in Pembroke. And of course, you know, that we've been asking for, and he's been soliciting, and the county chairman has been soliciting bids. And I understand that there's some unreadiness, but I have not heard any adverse commitment from this legislative body regarding funding that particular project. We do understand the raw sewage inundating the community, but I don't presume to speak for necessarily everybody, but candidly, I have not heard one adverse comment about us not coming to the aid of the township in that particular regard. However, funding this project is fine, but, one has to be cognizant of maintenance when we provide the funds for the installation of all the equipment and so forth. What happens after that? That's the big issue, and I think the chairman and the township supervisor Payton have discussed this, and there's a possibility of some other ways to address that problem. We may immediately fix the problem, but what about maintenance ongoing for the future? So we understand that. Additionally, and I'm kind of speaking to the public comments. There have been efforts by the sheriff's department to provide services, law enforcement for the school district. However, those of you who live in Pembroke Township know that particular matter was voted down by the school district. And that was going to benefit not only the school district, but also the village and the township, and specifically dealing with a lot of the stuff that happens at Citgo and some of the other stuff about the four-wheelers, the shooting. We're not blind to those particular issues, and but I think you guys are going to have to interface with the school district in terms of revisiting that particular issue, and I think Township Supervisor Payton has spoken to that.
Does anyone have anything else on this resolution here? Because if we could, I'd like to, and if it's about this resolution, let's, under old business, get into the wastewater situation, okay? If that's okay. But if you have something, Mr. Payton, please.
Yeah, I feel remiss if I didn't make some comments. The fact that I am the county board member as well as the township supervisor for Pembroke Township, I wanted to respond specifically on Mr. Bay's comments about the emergency situation we have. I asked that this board and the chairman, if it's any kind of way that we can make this effort happen in a timely way. As far as the housing is concerned out there, as a township supervisor, it's not going to happen, and I don't see it happen from the mayor's office as well. But I am concerned about the emergency situation with the water system. Thank you.
We'll get into that in a second. As am I. We've taken, well, we'll talk about all that. Anything else about this? The $250,000 cap fund, we have a motion and a second. Does anyone have any other comments? We'll go with a roll call vote then. Please, roll call vote.
Mr. Hess. Aye. Mrs. Polk.
Aye.
Mr. Snipes. Aye. Mr. Seroy.
Aye.
Mr. Lear.
Aye.
Mrs. Weber.
Aye.
Mr. Payton.
Aye.
Mrs. Parker.
Aye.
Mr. Fairfield.
Aye.
Mr. Carrico.
Aye.
Mr. Swanson.
Aye.
Mr. Featherling.
Aye.
Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Long.
Aye.
Mr. Kirkstra.
Aye.
Mr. Hunter.
Aye.
Ms. Bryan.
Aye.
Mr. Collins.
Aye.
Ms. Hudson.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Alexander.
Aye.
Mr. Gowler.
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler.
Aye. Motion carries. Yes, Mr. Hunter.
Just a little comment. I'm not sure if this falls within the purview of Jasmine or you. Now, we've taken this action, guys, in terms of the cap. Remember that, there's a cap. Now, all the submittals which have been received by the chairman, those particular individuals who submitted these proposals need to be advised of what the cap is. So, I'm sure some folks have submitted proposals which exceed that, but I'm hoping that those individuals who've submitted stuff already, proposals, need to be informed of what the cap is. And I assume, because I posed this question to the chairman before, if indeed this cap limit could be amended. He said possibly. So I just want you guys to know that there are a lot of entities who've submitted stuff in excess of $10,000.
Yes, and to your point, these were just, I want to say not just, we had talked about that this was for those not-for-profits that had, like, the COVID had an impact on their operations and their operating capital. Those are the things that we were talking about. These social service pitches that we're getting, those kind of exist outside of that. These are larger things that we're talking about that are substantial in cost. And there's, like I said, there's all these ones that compete with each other. So while we will get more specific on that, Mr. Arnold, your point is taken, though. $20,000 doesn't do very much for a child early education program for whatever. That's like a month. You know, so what we're talking about is something that's a little more broad and that we will access a larger pool of money. These caps were to make sure we had those larger pools of money. So we just didn't spend all of our money, you know, death by 1,000 cuts type thing. Pretty soon you wake up and then, wow, all the money's gone. We already gave it away and now we can't do what we really want to do. So that's the whole point of these budgeting capped funds. So we'll get on that. So could you read into the title into the record on this one real quick?
For 313, resolution of the County Board of Kankakee County, Illinois, creation of American Rescue Plan Fund requirements for non-covered governmental units.
Is there a motion on this one to start with? Mr. Swanson to approve, second. Mr. Long? Is there any discussion about this? Same principle, pretty much same everything as the other one. $250,000. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hess.
Aye.
Mrs. Polk.
Aye.
Mr. Snipes. Aye. Mr. Seroy.
Aye.
Mr. Lear.
Aye.
Mrs. Weber.
Aye.
Mr. Payton.
Aye.
Mrs. Parker.
Aye.
Mr. Fairfield.
Aye.
Mr. Carrico.
Aye.
Mr. Swanson.
Aye.
Mr. Featherling.
Aye.
Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Long.
Aye.
Mr. Kirkstra.
Aye.
Mr. Hunter. Ms. Bryan.
Aye.
Mr. Collins.
Aye.
Ms. Hudson.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Alexander. Mr. Gowler. Mr. Wheeler.
Aye. Motion carries. Now moving on, I wrestled with this. I was trying to make this as easy as possible. Most people have watched the committee meetings that all this went through, participated in. But there's a lot to go through. So I thought maybe a consent agenda, and just like the other one, give people a chance to pull something off of it to discuss those separately, if there's anything that has any further clarification. So let's try that. Mr. Lear, did you have something?
I want clarification on the information you gave us in terms of the coroner's request. I was trying to look at that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Could you say that again, Steve? I apologize. I didn't turn you on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like a little clarification on the adjustments on the money for the coroner's request. If I'm looking at that, I'm trying to figure out, now the mortgage racks, was that the one that you said was?
No, it was the autopsy cart.
It was going to be the autopsy carts?
8,500 is what he said not to exceed.
Okay, that's where I missed what you were saying.
And then 30,000 was the not to exceed on the freezer.
Okay, so I understand
those were
now.
pre-amendments, yeah, those were.
Thank you, that
he checked on
clarifies my
prices.
question.
Yeah, he checked on prices and we had to up those a little bit.
Okay.
So if that's okay, for the first time, is there anything anybody wants to discuss separately? Mr. Snipes?
318.
Mortuary racks, 318. Is there any others that need to be discussed separately? Second time, any others? I'll give you a minute here because there's quite a few.
317 pulled. Or was that just a question about the two?
Oh, no, they're not pulled. We just adjusted the language.
So 318 is pulled.
Yeah, just 318 is pulled for right now. Yeah, the other ones were just adjusting the amount.
Sure.
Yeah. All right, one last time. Is there anything that needs to be pulled? All right, is there a motion to combine and approve?
Question, are you pulling that, or?
Just
To discuss separately.
We want to discuss separately
Okay.
than the rest of them. We want to give everybody a chance to comment or debate individually, but if we got a big list, we shouldn't have to go through each one of them separately. We'd be here until afternoon. And I don't mind doing that if that's what you want to do.
You're buying lunch. Yeah.
Somebody got time for that, right? All right. Well, then, is there a motion to combine and approve from that aspect? Ms. Hudson, Ms. Polk with a second. If we can get the rest of them titles read in the record, I helped you out by putting what they were for. You like that? I'm thinking of you.
Yeah, by reference, man.
He's got to read them in the record.
Hang in there.
You gotta put them in there.
Authorizing expenditure from fiscal year 2021, Fund 95, America Rescue Plan Fund to Pembroke Township Park District. Can I just read the expenditures to who they're for the
I'm
rest
okay
of
with
this?
that. Yeah, as long as it's in there.
To Taylor Publications, to Lax Mortuary, to the Kankakee County Coroner's Office for the morgue freezer, to the Kankakee County Coroner for the autopsy cart, to the Kankakee County Coroner for decedent storage tables, to the Kankakee County Coroner for BACnet Delta Control System, to the Kankakee County Coroner for autoclave, the Kankakee County Coroner for payroll costs, the Kankakee County Courts for basement space remodel, the Kankakee County Courts for architectural and engineering services, the Kankakee County Courts for circuit clerk office space, the Limestone Fire Protection District, the Manteno Community Fire Protection District, the Bourbonnais Fire Protection District, Kankakee County Probation webcams, Kankakee County Probation monitor, Kankakee County Probation juvenile drug and alcohol treatment.
So those are read in the record. I just want to make sure you notice the difference on the 326, the last one on the page 2, if it's the same way it's printed on mine. That's a bid process. So we're approving that, yes, you agree we should go out to bid for this. It'll come back when we have numbers. And this will manifest more when we start looking at our other list of projects that you'll be going through in a minute. There's a lot of bids and RFQs, and it's just the board saying, yes, we want to go down this road. Then we'll get the numbers and then prioritize from there. So I just want to make sure that was clear. We're not authorizing that money to be spent in the clerk's office, but the rest of them there is authorization on. So we have a motion and a second. Ms. Weber.
I wonder if in all that was read, do any of them meet that maximum of the 20 or 30, 20 or 10,000? Or any of them have that cap on them? To the park district?
Well, yeah, we did adjust based on those caps. Yes, there was a few where we only paid half of the request if it was in a municipality, like, let's see here. Fire protection ones, I remember. The advertising program from Taylor's different because we have to reach out to communities to get more vaccinations. So that's an ad program.
So they're under the categories of business or not-for-profits or non-covered governmental. Those are
exactly. Bourbonnais. I wanted to say Manteno was in here somewhere. Maybe that's on the other list. Yeah, Manteno's in there. Limestone was in there. They've got to go to their municipalities they serve.
To the match. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
On the other hand, the county offices that we're talking about aren't under those two.
No, they're in our general fund.
Thank you.
Yep.
That helps me a lot.
Yep. Except for the coroner. We're going to use his special. No, I'm just kidding. He just fell off of his chair in his office. So yeah, beyond that's internal's internal. Yep. Just like using ARPA money for payroll. Yep. Towards COVID things, that will happen as it happens throughout the year. This item here was just catch up for the last few months. Yeah. Any other questions? Roll call vote.
Mr. Hess.
Aye.
Mrs. Polk.
Aye.
Mr. Snipes.
Aye.
Mr. Seroy.
Aye.
Mr. Lear.
Aye.
Mrs. Weber.
Aye.
Mr. Payton.
Aye.
Mrs. Parker.
Aye.
Mr. Fairfield.
Aye.
Mr. Carrico.
Aye.
Mr. Swanson.
Aye.
Mr. Featherling.
Aye.
Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Long.
Aye.
Mr. Kirkstra.
Aye.
Mr. Hunter.
Aye.
Ms. Bryan.
Aye.
Mr. Collins.
Aye.
Ms. Hudson.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Alexander.
Aye.
Mr. Gowler.
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler.
Aye. Motion carries. With 318, could we get that abbreviated title read in the record?
Resolution of the County Board of Kankakee County, Illinois, authorizing expenditure from fiscal year 2021, Fund Number 095, America Rescue Plan Fund to the Kankakee County Coroner's Office for mortuary wrecks.
Is there a motion on this one to start with? Mr. Feathering to approve, Mr. Long second. Mr. Snipes, yes, question.
Thank you. I don't want to appear as if I'm ossifying the process. I think that what we have in place is doing what it needs to do. But my concern here is that after looking at this particular request, mortuaries, especially like lax mortuaries, have to take bodies within the city and without the city. So in other cases where I would say the county is plausible in half and half, I would dissent in this regard, in that I need these individuals offer services to indigent individuals. It is and with the city only having 14.5, the county at 21.5, I'm looking at the percentage. I'm thinking in this process of the 14,000 that was requested, that with my due diligence, I would like to amend that to make it the 10,000, given the fact that he has to take bodies outside of a city. He has to deal with Pembroke and any other areas, both white, black, Hispanics. I've seen them all there. And in this regard, because of the equipment and because of COVID, I think that we should at least go up to the cap, and then I'm sure he can get the other 4 from the city of Kankakee through whatever their process. But I would have liked to amend this to make this at 10,000, which is the cap, because I think there is a great need. If you have looked at the papers, there's been a lot of murders in the city of Kankakee. There, a lot of them are African American. There's a lot that don't have proper burial insurance. So I'm saying with that particular hardship, I would amend it from the 78 to the cap of the 10,000. What the thought of the board would be, but I wanted to at least explain my rationale with an amendment in just this regard. All the others I agree with.
So we just passed that. Is that a motion to reconsider the previous vote
I
we
would
just did?
do a motion to kind of amend it, because I had it moved
It
for that
would be
particular-
parliamentary and proper. You have to do a motion to reconsider, and somebody who voted in the affirmative would have to make that motion to reconsider.
Oh, excuse me,
318 's
corner,
the corner.
316, excuse me.
Yeah, we already passed
316.
316.
But 316 is what I'm looking at. That's the one for lax.
But we've already passed it. So it would have to be a motion to reconsider.
Well, then
and it would
I'll
have
do the
to be-
motion to reconsider for that particular purpose, in order to just amend, so that we can get that amended to go up to the, at least up to the cap, which is the 10,000.
Is there a second on the motion to reconsider?
Can you reconsider while 318 is still on the table?
That's a good point. That's a very good point. We have a motion and a second on the floor for this one, so for 318.
Right,
Let's
so it needs to-
dispense of that, and then we'll go that way. Is there any discussion on 318? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hess.
Aye.
Mrs. Polk.
Aye. Aye.
Mr. Snipes.
Aye.
Mr. Seroy.
Aye.
Mr. Lear.
Aye.
Mrs. Weber.
Aye.
Mr. Payton.
Aye.
Mrs. Parker. Mr. Fairfield.
Aye.
Mr. Carrico. Mr. Swanson.
316.
Aye.
Mr. Featherling. Mr. Miller. Mr. Long.
Yeah. No.
Mr. Kirkstra.
Aye.
Mr. Hunter. Ms. Bryan. Mr. Collins. Ms. Hudson. Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Alexander.
Aye.
Mr. Gowler. Mr. Wheeler.
Aye. Motion carries. So, Mr. Snipes, did you want to make that motion now?
Yes, for the most for reconsideration of 316, which is Mr. Lax.
Alrighty, so the motion is to reconsider that and not approve it, and then put it back through at another amount after that. Is that? Let's get a second first, and then we'll go into that. The second with Ms. Hudson.
Oh,
Let me speak to, can I speak to that, Mr.
Well, you got the second, so.
Yeah, we got the second now, so now we can start debate.
However, as you guys may recall, I had talked with Mr. Lax, several times. He's talked with the chairman. And I understand what you're saying in terms of the cap. And also the participation of the county and the city. Is that what you're saying? However, I had talked with the chairman about this specific submission, the proposal that Mr. Lax had submitted for the Cavender. Maybe you can help me with this, that the embalming table that he wanted. And I did not hear any adverse comments about that. Additionally, I talked with the chairman about this proposal, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Chairman. You can, meaning based on the guidelines, you can help that particular business that would preempt the motion that you're dealing with in terms of 50-50. The county would do 50% and the city would do 50%. Is that a correct statement?
If I understand you correctly, that's the policy that this board instituted by previous vote was 50-50.
However, but we talked about that. We talked about that specifically about Lax, that based upon the business component of the ARPA funds, you could give him the $10,000.
If he would have applied for 20, we would have been in for 10 and the city would have to come up for the other 10. He applied for 14, so our 50% was, or 14.5.
Okay, so
our 50% was that. So,
okay.
Mr. Lear, did you have something?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to speak against the motion to reconsider based on the fact that the request, as I understand it, is based on an assumption the city's not going to participate in this proposal. If in fact the city participates, then there's really no need for this proposal. If we find out the city is not going to participate, a motion to reconsider would be appropriate at that time. At this time, because we have no information on what the intention of the city is, I'm voting no on reconsidering. I might vote yes if we find out the city's taking different action.
Is there anybody else first time?
I already spoke, they spoke, and I didn't speak, I just approved the motion.
Is there anybody else first time? Mr. Snipes. I'll get to you, Mr. Snipes. I promise. Believe me, you're not going to be shortchanged.
Let me make this clear. We're not in opposition of the 7,800. Thank you for that. What I am saying is we have a proportionate share of killings that have happened inside the city and outside the city. If you look at the comparison of the funding, we were awarded 21.5. City only has 14.5. And what I'm saying is, what I'm looking at this percentage is that because we have had this, and we see in the paper, there's evidence of it, and they have to handle a lot from the outlining counties, and most of that is indigent. I'm just requesting that we move, that we consider moving it up to the cap of the $10,000, because we don't know what the city may or may not do, but they have, they're limited by at least $7 million in their coffers. So because these individuals have to, this individual, this entity has to go outside and deal with the outlining county, whether you're white, black, Hispanic, or Pacific Islander or other, I'm asking that we consider the cap of the 14,000. And I'm sure if the city approves the other four, fine. So I'm not asking above the cap, I'm just asking that we consider going up to the cap based on a lot of these murders that have happened, and that's evident in our city. So that's the purpose of my reconsideration, not because I'm anticipating the city doing something. It's just that he has to handle a lot of the indigent things that's outside of the city of Kankakee, which is about 25% of this particular county. So the other 75% is the outlining county, and that's why I asked for the cap.
So any other comments on that? First time? Any other first time comments? I'll just mention Kankakee's allotment is roughly $630, $630 per resident, and the county's is roughly $200 per resident. So to act like the city doesn't have, or all the other cities don't have money is not accurate. Mr. Lear, second time, and then we'll go back to somebody else.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to take a procedural position, and move to table this until we learn what action the city has taken. To a time certain. Motion to table to a time certain, that time certain being when we learn the action of the city.
Okay,
Well,
You can move to table to a time
Do
certain.
that anytime, motion table.
Motion to a time certain.
No debate on motion table.
yeah, but a motion to reconsider is on the floor, and I want to make sure that doesn't have precedence
Yeah, you're right.
on the motion to
Yeah,
table.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah,
Mine.
so that's. Give me just 1 second, Mr. Hess. I'm trying to, this cheat sheet is.
We have a motion.
Yeah, I know, and some you can interrupt with motion to table, and I don't think you can with taking up a matter previously, or reconsider already something that's disposed of. Only if original motion was debatable. Second, amendable, no. I think you have to go through with the motion to reconsider first. And I'm just gonna have to go with that because I don't have an in-depth analysis.
I'll accept the ruling of the chairman.
Does that, would you, John, would you? You would agree? I think we have to dispense of that motion, so.
This is too brief. It
Mr.
doesn't deal
Seroy?
with this. This is a very,
thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Lax could always come back and reapply later. Later on, if the city of Kankakee doesn't fulfill their 50% of what we've approved, you know, we're gonna have money through the next 3 years. That's my comment.
Yeah.
That is a wrong inference, Mr. Vice Chairman. You know,
Is there any, I'm sorry, we're not gonna debate each other.
Well, but that's a mistake.
If there, people can apply again if they want
He's
to.
already applied. Don't tell me about him having to reapply again.
Is there anybody else who has a thought on the motion to reconsider?
So if we don't approve, he gets the 7,800, no matter, because we've already approved that. So the only thing was up on the consideration was whether we.
If it was 78, it might have been 72.5, I think. 73.5, yeah.
73.5.
Yeah, he gets that.
Right.
So we're all this over 2,500 bucks. So, see, I just want to explain something. If we don't have something in place, everybody in the municipalities are going to come to us because the municipalities aren't giving out the money yet. That's why this is in place, is to encourage participation, but not hammer them with it. So if they don't, then we're going to come back and say, okay, we'll just give you the money anyway. Then pretty soon we are the piggy bank for all these businesses and all these people in all these different towns. When the towns were given money themselves that they should be doing things with, and I think most of them intend to do this and don't have a problem with any of this. So while I appreciate the thought, it's gummed up the works, and the intent is to make sure that we don't become the piggy bank for everybody in the county to come to us, because we're actually doing something right now. The other ones are working to get to that point. We're there. And so I say get the money to Mr. Lax. Let him do with it what he needs to, and other people apply with us. Okay, that's just my own opinion. Again, you may feel different. So can we do a roll call vote on the motion to reconsider? So if you say yes, then you want to change it, and then we go back and debate what that number is. Is it the 10,000? Or if it's, you say no on the motion to reconsider, then it's what was previously passed. I just did that. I just said that. You looked at, so if you say yes, it means you want to change what we already approved. And if you say no, it means you want to stay with what we already approved. Is everybody clear what yes and no mean? Because it gets confusing. Yes or no? Sorry. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hess. Nay. Mrs. Polk.
Yes.
Mr. Snipes.
Aye.
Mr. Seroy.
Nay.
Mr. Lear.
Nay.
Mrs. Weber.
Nay.
Mr. Payton.
Aye.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yes? Thank you. Sorry. Mrs. Parker. Mr. Fairfield.
Nay.
Mr. Kirko.
Nay.
Mr. Swanson.
Nay.
Mr. Featherling.
Nay.
Mr. Miller.
Nay.
Mr. Long.
Nay.
Mr. Kirkstra.
Nay.
Mr. Hunter. Ms. Bryan.
Nay.
Mr. Collins.
Nay.
Ms. Hudson.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Nay.
Mr. Alexander.
Nay.
Mr. Gowler.
Nay.
Mr. Wheeler.
Nay.
Motion fails.
Motion fails. So we'll get everything out to the appropriate people as soon as we can and start the process on bids for everything else. So more to come. The next section is, the next section is the lost revenue portion. And it's really the same thing, these two items. They're more in depth, and I'll explain to something else too, by the way. The first set of things you just approved, they specifically call out the section of the law that allows us to spend money on that project. Okay, each one is a separate resolution, so we can document this and justify it to the U.S. Department of Treasury. So it's not necessarily, I want to say, addressing the law, it's the rules that Treasury is putting out on how you can spend the money. The law was big and gray, and they tried to give a lot of leeway, and then when Treasury got a hold of it, they start to funnel that down and really pigeonhole into certain uses. So we've got those documented. The last one, the last two that you see here, we call them gang sheets. It's a listing of all these different bids and things that we don't necessarily have to document with each resolution because it's our lost revenue money. It's kind of the free and clear money that we don't have to use for a specific COVID reason. So I wanted to explain the difference because you're going to see this going forward. There may be 6 resolutions for 6 menial things in your mind, and then there'll be one big long sheet maybe for the lost revenue. And you may ask that question, why are we doing it this way? It's for that specific reason. Treasury wants to see specific documentation and the reason that you passed this particular item, particularly on COVID uses. So I just want to mention that up front. It's a little bit tedious, but we have to do it that way. So this the first one, is there a motion to combine these two? Mr. Swanson, Mr. Lear with a second, 33 and 34, if we can get those two read in the record, the title, please.
Authorizing the expenditures of American Rescue Plan Act funds fiscal year 2021, fund number 98, Exhibit A. Authorizing request to future allocations of American Rescue Plan Act funds fiscal year 2021, fund number 98, Exhibit A.
And so contained within these, I apologize. He read things. His mic wasn't on.
Oh.
What do you think? Interpretive dance? Do you want to have him do it that way, or no? I'm just kidding. So
let's do it again.
Let's do it again, just to be official.
With gusto this time. Authorizing the expenditures of American Rescue Plan Act funds fiscal year 2021, fund number 98, Exhibit A. Authorizing a request to future allocations of American Rescue Plan Act funds fiscal year 2021, fund number 98, Exhibit A.
And thank you, sir. And you see those items on the Exhibit A of both of those. For the most part, they're bids, and then if they're not bids, they're going on the future allocations list, and then we will rank them and bring them back as we release future projects. So I just need that authorization to go ahead and go get bids from the board. So is there a motion on this to combine and approve? Mr. Fairfield, Mr. Kirkstra, second? Any of these to be discussed, and you want to talk about any of these? There are those two exhibits, if there's something you want to mention. Ms. Weber first, and then we'll go Mr. Collins.
I just note that you already had a first and second.
Oh, I did. Okay, I'm sorry. Who was the first and the second, the original? Swanson and Lear? Who was the second? No, for the second time.
Lear. Oh.
Okay, well, good. We missed the second time, so it didn't happen.
I got the second time.
You did?
Yes.
We'll go with the first guys.
Okay.
All right, thanks. Any other thoughts about any of these specific projects? Ms. Weber first.
It's not a complete list. It keeps going on.
Exactly. So if we get a bid, we're putting it on the other future projects list to be ranked as in importance. Because we may say we want to do something, but it's number 44 and the line stops at 22. We just don't know because as we get through the process. And then other things may come in down the road.
Right.
And plus, we have all these social service requests that are gonna have to be blended in here as well, hopefully out of the ARPA funds and not lost revenue. That's what we're looking to do.
The second question is, will we get updates? How much have we spent already? How much?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've been working with Steve on a tool, McCarty, that we're not only gonna have available, but we're gonna get it on a website, whether it's the new one or the current one, but we'll be publishing where we're at.
That's great.
And once that future allocations and we approve those, it'll kind of tell you, well, this is how much of the fund is already spent.
Right.
You know, and what we still have to go.
Thank you.
Yep. And again, that'll be a fluid number, because we may say, hey, this just happened, COVID came back again, businesses, heaven forbid, would be impacted, people are impacted. Well, what do we need to do? Well, these 4 priorities just got bumped down for this.
Right.
So we're trying to leave flexibility because we can't predict the future. But we do need to move on other things that we can't wait anymore on, especially these bids. We had a motion and a second, Mr. Hess?
Yeah, just a comment on some of these contracts, like for the remote inspection software. There's a $500 a year per charge afterward. Now, they're gonna have to put that, or they're gonna have to absorb that into their budget after the ARPA funds, correct?
Correct.
I just wanna make sure we got that on record.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they know that at the end of the ARPA funds, that they're gonna have to absorb that into their budget for anything that's gonna have a charge on a yearly basis afterwards.
Yep. And most of, if not all of those that have a maintenance fee, if you will, attached, are put on future allocations, so we can consider that just that very thing.
Okay.
We have to be able to pay for it. So $500 a year for remote inspection software, there is a COVID reason for that. We don't have to be there interacting. They can do, you know, FaceTime, for lack of a better word, and we can go through things remotely. That may be worth the $500 down the road. We just have to consider it. I think it is. I think it would help the public for us to be able to do that remotely. So, alrighty, deep breath. We ready for roll call? Please.
Mr. Hess.
Aye.
Mrs. Polk.
Aye.
Mr. Snipes.
Aye.
Mr. Seroy.
Aye.
Mr. Lear.
Aye.
Mrs. Weber.
Aye.
Mr. Payton.
Aye.
Mr. Fairfield.
Aye.
Mr. Carrico.
Aye.
Mr. Swanson.
Aye.
Mr. Featherling. Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Long.
Aye.
Mr. Kirkstra.
Aye.
Mr. Hunter.
Aye.
Ms. Bryan.
Aye.
Mr. Collins.
Aye.
Ms. Hudson. Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Alexander.
Aye.
Mr. Gowler.
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler.
Aye. Motion carries. Mr. Collins, was your comment just about that there was motions on the floor? I thought, okay, I just want to make sure there wasn't something else. Sorry about that. Openings.
We
made it.
One opening on the Raymond Drainage District, one opening on the Mantino Drainage District number 3, one opening on the BM Lewis Drainage District, one opening on the Grinnell Special Drainage District, one opening on the Union Drainage District number 2, one opening on the Yellowhead Washington Union Drainage District number 2, one opening on the Clawson Park Drainage District, one opening on the Gar Creek Drainage District, one opening on the Essex Township Fire Protection District, one opening on the Zoning Board of Appeals, one opening on the Kankakee River Conservancy District, one opening on the Economic Alliance Committee for a board member, 2 openings on the Canavan Drainage District, 2 openings on the X-Line Creek Drainage District, 2 openings on the Joe Bennis Drainage District, 2 openings on the Spring Creek Drainage District, 2 openings on the Little Beaver Special Drainage District, 2 openings on the McGillivray Special Drainage District, 2 openings on the Minnie Creek Drainage District, 2 openings on the Moments Yellowhead Drainage District number 1, 2 openings on the Rockville Drainage District number 1, 2 openings on the Snake Creek Drainage District, 2 openings on the Animal Welfare Advisory Committee, 2 at-large members, 3 openings on the Mantino number 9 Drainage District, 6 openings on the Kankakee County Regional Planning Commission.
All righty, moving to new business. Is there any new business? Old business? Do you want to get into wastewater? Because I'd be happy to tell the board what's happened at the where we're at. When this originally
Hey guys, that's the, just not wastewater.
we record the meeting, so. So what had happened is when this originally came to the board, we said, yeah, we want to help. We got to figure out what the emergency is. In order for us to do that, we need bids. The general gist of the conversation was, is it a motor or is it the whole system? Or the pump and the pump motor and the whole system? If we would have just bought the motor, it would still not be working right now. We would have just fixed the pump, it would still not be working right now. Plus, we couldn't have gotten to the pump anyway, as Mr. Payton will tell you, because the whole thing needs to be drained out. The whole thing needs to be pumped out. And we can get, Mr. Payton can talk about what he's done to try to get that going. We have one quote that is for the repair of that pump, and roughly an idea that the rails and all of the electronics are all garbage too, so they have to be all replaced and repaired. And that's not even talking about anything down in the bottom of the tank that might be broken elbows or anything else. Now, I also asked an engineer to go out there and take a look at it, because there were some ideas that they might be able to retrofit something to kind of alleviate the pressure, literal pressure on the system that's causing things to bubble up in the ditches and now into some basements. And so that fix was not viable. The engineer said, you're gonna have to pump all this out, but it looks like you need a new pump and you gotta repair the other one, but you don't really know until you clean all the nasty stuff out of the pit. All right, so there's a large expense, and I don't know if you've ever had a chance to get a cost on pumping that out, Mr. Payton, but I mean, you pumped it out twice, it didn't move the needle at all. It didn't do anything. And so we're talking 100 trucks of sewage leaving there to be emptied in order to get in there to figure out what's got to be done. So, and whenever you figure that out, it's probably going to be $80, $90, $100,000. Okay, so I met with the mayor, I met with Mr. Payton. I said there's going to have to be all hands on deck to get this thing fixed. Wastewater is something that I can spend money on, or we can as a board, as part of the ARPA money, but we just have to know that what we're spending is actually going to fix it. And right now, we still don't know that because we got to get the tank pumped out, right? And so there's an immediate authorization for emergency funds just to do that. Now, it'll fill back up. That'll buy us some time. But as you know, Mr. Payton, about every 6 years, that whole system, it's down 6, 7, 8 years, and then there's no PM on the equipment, and then it just fails again. And then we're back with hat in hand trying to figure out how to get this done. So that's where Mr. Hunter was talking about. We need a fix on the long-term maintenance and a funding mechanism to fix it. So we can solve the problem now, but how does this last forever? So in 6 years, we're not going through seeing this movie again. So I don't know if that's responsible, irresponsible, that's for others to judge, but as far as money goes, I just don't want to throw good money after a bad problem. So, Mr. Payton, do you have any thoughts there?
My thought is that for the purpose of the community and the health issue, that's my main concern, that we stop that right now. Yeah, you're right. We tried pumping it, and it didn't go anywhere. Now we have one pump that's in the shop trying to get that repaired to see if that can move the mess, the inside of it. But my main concern, and had I known my board was coming up this morning, I would have had all of them to testify on the emergency of that situation. But that's my main concern.
So I think we previously said the board would support an emergency action. We just didn't know what that action was. At first, it was just to fix a pump, but now, if there's no electronics to run the pump system, I don't know how that's going to work. But again, the engineers may have a better idea than I do, but I kind of did that one time in my life, so I know a little bit about it. So I don't know how the board wants to proceed until, I mean, is it, Mr. Payton, is it, you just got to get the thing pumped out so the immediate pressure is alleviated, and then you guys worry about the full long-term fix? Because as it stands, that would push maybe another $20,000, $25,000, $30,000 to the county.
Where the way I see it, the truck came out and he pumped for 2 days. Wow. Nothing happened.
It didn't go down?
No.
When the hell did that happen?
Yeah.
If we could handle that in the township meeting, I'd appreciate that, please. This is the board and we're trying to help, but you guys have partners in this and we want to help. but you also have revenue that is supposed to help go towards these things too. And I'm trying to get the city or the village and the township together on a long-term solution. But we have an immediate problem, is ditches and basements. So I don't know what type of authority this board could give me to act between the next time we see each other. And it's not on the agenda. You tell me. There's really nothing. It's not our emergency. We have to go through a process to be able to vote on it as a board. So it would take a full special county board meeting, I believe, John, in order to do this. So we're here to help, but we just can't drive the whole thing. I hope that makes sense. You know, I think we've gone not over and above, because we could have been out there pumping it ourselves, but I mean, we don't want to be doing that. But as far as the long-term, even the short-term fix is elusive right now. I mean, it seems to me we've got to get the tank pumped out. That's the main thing, because then it has a place to go while we figure the rest of it out and figure out what else needs to be repaired. So beyond that, Mr. Snipes?
Yes. I believe I was under the understanding, because I stated that we wanted to move in the direction of not really repairing it, because it's been a long-term process only for it to fail again, but to see what the cost would be to actually go out, look at it, get it up to standard, whether we have to replace it. We need to know the cost. Now, that's not upon us, that's upon the village to basically bring that cost to us after they have gotten the bids and the things of that nature. We share in the responsibility to make sure, or we have pledged that share to basically assist after we look at the numbers. Just to talk about it and not be about it is a different issue. We need to know what it's going to cost. Yes, you can pump it, but what would it cost to replace this so that we don't have this problem for several years? If we just go put bandages on, it's going to cost us a lot more. So if we go ahead and get a cost, I don't think it costs us nothing to get a cost. So if they go ahead and get the cost, we can now have some numbers in our head and then see before opera and anything else goes away, what we can do to kind of assist and lift some of the burden and help Pembroke as well. I will probably dissent in saying that it's not our emergency, because they are in the Pembroke as part of the unincorporated part of this county. So it is our emergency, but it is their due diligence to make sure that we get that information. So when we get that information, we can act. I just don't want to be talking and keep talking. Let's get some numbers.
Sure. And just so everybody knows, we own no part of this system, have no legal obligation to maintain it. We just have the heart and the brain to think that we should be doing those types of things. But then we also have to remember, we also have all these other townships that aren't asking for upwards of $140,000 on a wastewater system. Just want to mention that, because fair is fair. There's traditionally been lack of resources going to Hopkins Park, and that's why we're listening. But to perpetuate the problem and to not have a solution for the next time it happens, I think everybody would agree that that's the wrong way to go. But we have to fix today too. So I don't see anybody saying, no, you're on your own. What I'm saying is what's first? Seems to me the tank being drained is first. Don't really know, because everything else in that pit, you can't get in the pit without it being, unless you want to put on your scuba gear, and I ain't doing that. So I'm just saying. So again, Mr. Kirkstra.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, not to brag about it, but I have had past experience in the city of Chicago reclamation. So I do know what you're talking about. But I think the emphasis should be on this here. If we can't get in to find out what's going on down there, we're not going to fix anything, and we can't move anywhere. So if we can have, I think that's where we're at right now. We can help them. If we can help them out to get that done, there's no way that they can get bids on what it's going to take to repair this system if they can't get in to look at it.
The bid we have is like the worst case. You need,
right,
you need this pump and this one repaired, and the rails and the PLC to go with it, or whatever.
As I said, I think the emphasis should be right now on what can we do to help get that system emptied out and get somebody in there that can actually take a physical, and they have to take a physical look at the problem that they have here. It may be a total rebuild. It may just be a few parts. We don't know. We don't know until we get it cleaned out and get it in there. So I think that that's the avenue we should be working on with the township there, or whoever is responsible for the project.
And know that the only way we can do that is for me to call a special board meeting and to get everybody together to do it between now and the next meeting.
This is a serious public health issue, and I think we should do all we can to resolve it.
Mr. Chairman, I think so. We should have a special board.
Yep. Can you get a price on what it is to pump out the whole thing?
We have it by then because they can't estimate what the price is to pump out the whole thing right now because, like I told you, I had a truck there for 2 days that we inherited a cost for that, and it didn't move.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Seroy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Payton, what did that truck cost for 2 days? What was the cost of that?
$150 an hour.
$150 an hour?
Yeah.
Did they go 24/7 or was it just an 8-hour period?
Well, it's probably roughly about 8 hours.
And how many tanker loads did they take out of there?
I can't answer that.
Because my concern is that possibly the water level table is high out there that I'm familiar with, and possibly the tank could be taking water in as well as putting water out. So that's my concern. You know, you could pump for days and days and days, and you're not going to pump all the water out of the ground. And I think an engineer's study would be the best way, or somebody with some kind of knowledge of, you know, water table and all that should be on hand to figure those things out for the township. I agree that it's a problem and we want to help, but if we're just going to pump water, there's a lot of water in that ground.
It's not water.
Yeah, it's brown water.
Right, no doubt, but there is the water table is high also, so.
Yeah. So we have had the engineer out, that's what they said, you gotta clean it out so you can figure out what the true costs are inside the tank. So that's kind of where we're at. We'll call a special meeting once we have that together. So beyond that, is everybody satisfied with the discussion at least? Not the answers, because sometimes the answers aren't what you wanna hear, but we're trying to get to the right perspective, if you will. And sooner or later, the residents out there are gonna have to decide what they want. Do they want a viable water system and wastewater system? Because what is paid into that system, for my analysis, does not upkeep the system. It's not enough revenue to actually maintain it. So that's just my own opinion, looking at it from the outside, doing the math. So people have to decide what they want to do, because the current revenue that comes in is not sufficient to maintain the system as a public utility owned by the township and the village. 2 cents. Anything else? Ms. Weber?
I just want to clarify what it is you're hoping to bring to that special board meeting.
It would just be a cost to be able to pump it out and relieve the pressure on the system, so it doesn't bubble into people's basements and in the ditches, so they can then figure out how much they need to do the fix.
Well, that's specific. That's
Yeah.
pretty specific. So.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Mr. Gowler. Hold on just a second. Let me turn you on. There you go.
I'd just like to know exactly what type of tank this is, just so I can better understand it.
Did I mention he works at Karma? He works at the wastewater utility, so he might know a thing or two. Sam, do you know what the size of the tank is and the depth?
I don't know the size nor the depth.
Okay.
But I will talk to you after the meeting.
$250 an hour. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. All right, is there a motion, Mr. Hess?
Yes, sir.
Hey, we have a motion to adjourn, a second. Mr. Kirkstra. Yes. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Have a good day.